Well, we decided to do it one more time, posthumously. This is Doomcast. It doesn't matter what number. It's the finale. Craig Simpson, the producer of Doomcast, joining me, Doug Owen, here on this final broadcast, the final voyage. What's up, Craig Simpson?
Oh, Seattle is still here. You know, a great big tidal wave has not come and taken all this depravity back into the sea where it belongs.
Right. Well,
so, yeah, no, I'm good. We are here. So we've been thinking about doing this for a little while, and now we're doing it. So
we are doing it. So most of you that are listening to this final Doomcast, or maybe just happened upon the stream, welcome. Most of you probably know by now, Charlie McGrath is no longer with us. He recently passed early January. I want to say January 13th. Was that the date?
I don't remember.
It was right around there. Yeah.
Close enough. The 13th pulled him in.
Yeah, right. Well, you did one of the last broadcasts with Charlie. He was kind of...
It was odd. I think there's a little bit of, well, of course, you know, surrounding Charlie's death, there's a conspiracy. Because, of course, his very last broadcast that he did after I talked to him, I believe he said for the first time ever and only time, as far as I know, he kind of went off script. How at the end he always said, you know, that's all I got. But he actually said, I'll be back. That was really odd, you know, his last. And so I talked to him on the 7th, I think, of January, 6th or 7th. And then he died, I believe, late the 7th, I think.
So is this an actual conspiracy theory that's out there on the net, or is this one that you just came up with?
Oh, I just saw it in some YouTube comments, so it's not a real conspiracy, but it's just really odd that he said, you know, I'll be back, you know, rather than that's all I got. It was his last monologue that he did. I think it might have been within probably, could be like 12 hours of his death, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
Just like most of the Doomcast, we always had to work with technical difficulties. Your audio is fine, but I'm getting this like whining hiss. And
let me actually do something. 1 second. Let me do something. Do you hear it now?
Yeah.
It's still there?
Yeah, it's like maybe a sound card, something plugged in, something. I don't know. Let me see. Let me unplug this. Now talk.
Okay, how does it sound now?
It's better.
Better? Okay, yeah, because this should be, as far as I know, pretty hiss-free on my end. But then again, it's a computer. It booted. It could be jacked. So.
That's not that bad. It's no big deal. Yeah, Charlie and I usually went through this, and I don't know, when we started the show, I think he was doing the show on a like $5 microphone that he got from, I don't know, Best Buy somewhere as he traveled. He was a real utilitarian. He was like, this is all I need to broadcast. He didn't really care for all. I mean, he did put a background. I mean, he did do a really professional show as far as the content. It was always passionate. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I think Charlie has the thousands of YouTube subscribers that I imagine content will still be made for. I'm not really sure of what his sister Bonnie plans on doing with Wide Awake News or any of the other people like Karen Tostada or Scarecrow, all of those guys, what their plans are.
Yeah, I don't know either. Really, I think that he had kind of gotten burnt out on doing a lot of shows because he was doing Boiling Frog Post, something like that.
Yeah, and
Doomcast and his monologues and appearing on, what was it, like, you know, Iran TV or something. I think even RT, right?
He was on RT doing the RT interview circuit. He also had Press TV, but I just didn't.
Press TV.
Yeah. They really were not fans of the Second Amendment and didn't want to talk about guns or anything. It was, I don't know. He hooked me up with one of their contact people, and I was just always like, nah.
Yeah, I'm a wimp. I'm not going to kid you. I'm like,
I don't want to go on Iranian TV. I mean, you know, there's just something about it that's probably not a good idea.
There's just something no-fly list about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I just don't know. I don't need to be on there.
Right.
But Charlie
I don't think
was
the Iranian people would identify with me anyway, so.
No. They just he looks like a biker Viking. We don't know. So yeah. So, but yeah, he's doing a lot of shows, and I think he got burnt out, and also his health he just was struggling for a while there, and so
I mean, that's something we talked about a lot was his health. A lot of the things, the premise of the show was not to get into too many topics, and I mean, we talked about news and other current affairs or current items, and so one of the things we talked about a lot towards the end was his health, and how much that was affecting him, and of course, what ultimately led to his passing was his acute asthma. I mean, we would talk about it on the show often. It's kind of macabre, in doing this, but he would talk about, how he came within just minutes of losing his life. And so, it was something that was a real day-to-day factor for him. And I thought that he was getting a lot better, and maybe he was, and maybe that led to maybe a little extra self-confidence, and maybe I have no idea what the circumstances actually were.
Yeah, no one really knows. I think it was, like I say, I'm not even exactly sure when I believe he died, like maybe like in the early hours of like the 8th, like sometime during the night, like early in the morning. But I talked to him on the 7th, and so he was feeling just fine. Yeah, so he'd gotten the asthma kind of under control, and he was doing well. He was able to do stuff. So I will say that the last number of months of his life, Charlie was having fun. I mean, he bought lots of guns. He was out shooting. He, didn't work that much. He spent lots of time with his son. He was in and out of Seattle quite a lot.
Right.
Just doing his business. So actually, I met Charlie. We had lunch, over down by the airport. So, he really actually, it's odd. It's something I kind of noticed I've noticed over the years, I guess being like 45 years old now, that sometimes when people are getting ready to die and they don't know it, all of a sudden, like for some reason, you'll notice like the last couple months of their life, they just did everything that they enjoy doing. Yeah, and I think Charlie was really the last couple months of his life. I don't think he knew he was going to die, but then again, I guess ultimately on some level you do. And I think he really packed it in. I think he did. I think he was really living the life that was exactly how he wanted it his last couple of months. So, I mean, that is a good thing. And I will say in his last couple of months, I don't think he was doing too bad with the asthma at all. So I guess when you do have asthma that you can die from, I guess they call it like fatal asthma, you can just die. I mean, it can happen. So, he wasn't struggling. So that is cool that he got to, have a good couple, last months there.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's all about quality time here while we're on planet Earth, right? I mean, that's really kind of the metric for success on planet Earth is how you spend the time. So a lot of people spend a lot of time here on planet Earth and don't really enjoy it at all. And so I consider that to be a big win right there in and of itself.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned his son, who's, I think still in high school or maybe just about to graduate.
I think just about to graduate. I'm not sure. I think he's still in high school. If he is,
we are horrible friends. We have no specifics whatsoever for this last Doomcast. We have generalities and guesses.
We're totally mainstream media-ing it tonight. It's like, well, we have Charlie is still dead, and he did have a family. It's like,
yeah,
he did. No, his son, was. I think I think he was a senior. I think he was still in high school, but I mean, what I do know is that, I mean, Charlie was, I don't think there was a day that I ever knew Charlie where he wasn't hopping in the car to go and get his son, take his son somewhere. He had to go pick him up. I mean, I would say that Charlie was definitely probably like the best Mr. Dad I've ever seen as far as a single dad. So, I mean, so I know, I guess I know the important parts. I mean, I don't know the dates and like how old his son was, but right. I do know that, they had a great relationship. That's very admirable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, gonna miss Charlie. Charlie was,
for sure.
Charlie and I often contrasted in our thoughts on topics, and I think that's what made the show interesting. He's definitely, a more devout Christian. Obviously I'm pretty much an atheist or a recovering Methodist, if you will. I mean, that's how I was raised, Methodist, which is a, pretty bland form of Christianity in and of itself. I mean, it's just relaxed. It's not a lot of brimstone and fire. So, not that Charlie was a hardcore Baptist. I'm not sure if he was actually any certain denomination of Christian, but just sometimes the philosophies, our political philosophies. At the end of the day, we always. I think everyone that listens to the show or happens upon it, even if you're on the left or the right, wants a better world, and there's a lot of competing ideas for how we get there from where we're at today. But by and large, I mean, his passion for liberty and mine, that was the mainstay, because regardless of all of the other positions, if that's the core foundation, personal freedom, individualism, liberty, then the rest of it's kind of semantics. But that's the most interesting part of talking about current events. And I know that Charlie would be all over what's happening in Oregon with the militia or right-wing terrorists, as Boing Boing and other left-wing outlets call the standoff at the refuge. Of course, we've had one man now shot and killed by the federal government. I guess it was the FBI or local. I don't think it was local SWAT teams.
I think it was FBI and then like some local police, I think.
Right.
Or something like that.
So I don't know where Charlie would stand on this or how he felt about it, being a guy in Montana, and I hate to, put any words into his mouth, and that's not what I'm trying to do here, posthumously, but I know that he would be pretty sympathetic, I think, to, and most of us are, to the ill will towards the federal government that many people have because of the rampant criminality. But we talked about this kind of at length, and I don't know if it's worth talking about again, or maybe going back through that conversation that we had and playing that again. But you brought up some pretty profound thoughts about some of the takeaways from this, standoff at the Oregon refuge, the wildlife refuge. That is, it looks like it's, at least from what I am following, coming to a closing quickly.
Oh yeah, I think that the air got let out of the steam. The steam got let out of that situation when the old guy, I forget his Cliven, what's his name? I forget his name. Got shot. The old guy, and
the old guy.
Old guy. That's what I call him. The old guy. And I can say that
his name was Lavoy Finicum.
Lavoy Finicum. Sounds like something out of a novel.
It's a great name. I like it, actually. I think it's probably biblical, right?
It's open. You can grab it now. It's no longer taken. But I guess one thing I did realize about that is, so we get this statement from the Bundy's lawyer, telling everybody to go home. It's done. And I did question the authenticity of that to some extent. Did he really say that or not? I think that there was an incredible amount of pressure on the feds, I guess, to bring this to a close. I don't know. I just think it's the wrong administration. It's just the wrong political climate. I just think I think the feds wanted this to be done. They didn't want to be embarrassed. They didn't want to look bad. I think they kind of bumbled the ending a little bit. I have a feeling that the FBI, et cetera, will get off any criminal charges. There won't be any criminal charges. I don't think that's going to happen.
For who? For the man who shot?
Yeah, for the guy who shot, for the FBI in general. I think, there won't be any criminal charges there. And that's kind of a given. But where I do think we'll see them, the FBI lose, you might say the feds lose, is I think they'll lose in civil court. So I think they're going to win the legal case, but they're going to lose the civil case, because the legal case is not about what's right and wrong. It's about what's legal and illegal. And so they can pretty much just say, hey, we're the feds, we're the FBI. He grabbed for something and we shot him. And that's just kind of a open and shut case. But, civil law is about what's right and wrong. And I don't think they'll be able to stand. I don't think they'll be able to make that. I don't think that they'll be able to make that argument in court. I think that they'll. I think that the family.
Okay, all of this being based on the video that the FBI recently released that we've all seen, and so I thought that was pretty telling in that the FBI is worried about the perception, is worried about conspiracy theories, quote unquote, alternate summations coming from what has happened with. Obviously his daughter, Lavoie's daughter, saying, he had his hands up, he was unarmed, etc. And just for those who haven't seen the video, to briefly describe what happens, you have Lavoie, who is driving, and he's basically in a slow motion cop chase with two armored personnel carriers or large trucks, with basically like task force bread trucks is the term they use. And I think it's about what it was. Armored trucks that were following this guy for up to 8 minutes. That's about what the video has, 8 minutes and some change. They're trying to pull this guy over, obviously. And so I try to look at it from both sides. Okay, you got this guy. Okay, obviously you have to pull him over. You're going to pull him over. If anywhere else in the world there's a guy driving that, for the most minor infraction, it doesn't stop his vehicle, the police will follow you until the end of time. That's pretty much the standard, whether you like it or not. And you're going to have some kind of interaction. And so I think that if I'm an FBI SWAT team guy, and this guy, I know because I've watched the videos that Pete Santilli was broadcasting, where this guy's like, I'm not going to be taken alive. That gets in the back of your head. So you automatically, you're ready for an altercation. There's already, reason to believe that this guy is armed, is dangerous, does want to die, does expect to die when he jumps out of this vehicle. Rather than stopping, he tries to run a blockade, takes a left, tries to swerve away from the vehicles. Could have easily, these guys were behind the vehicles. They may have been taken out. So, the fact that they didn't start shooting at that point, I thought was pretty reasonable. Jumps out, got his hands up. And I think the question, and what I'm seeing a lot on the internet, the response is that he grabs his side. Now, maybe he was shot with a gun. That's one theory. Maybe they shot him beforehand, and that's when he went for his gun. May have been beanbagged. That might be, something to look at, because you can't really see anything from. You have to consider the source, the FBI's video, which they were quick to put out. And he may have been reaching. I don't know, but the fact that he's running with his hands up at first, that's going to put people on high alert. So I'm not advocating the murder, because I think that they may have been able to, maybe tase this guy, shot him with rubber bullets. But if I thought that he had a gun on him and that he was going to try to pop off a couple of rounds, depending on training, might be absolutely within the officer's discretion to shoot him. So, I think when you look at the letter of the law, civil, suits and all of that, I don't know. I can only feel so sorry for a person that puts themselves in that many bad positions,
Oh, for sure.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over again, yeah.
If ultimately he would have pulled over and said, hey, I got my hands up, and didn't run and didn't, do all of these other things, then, yeah, Yeah, he shoots him. It's cold-blooded murder. But because of all the actions that he took, people, this is something that you said, the profound thing was that people are not going to be moved by this. So if it's civil disobedience, if you're trying to bring more awareness to the Hammond case, which you and I both agree, does deserve more attention. These guys fighting with the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, trying to push them off of their land. And, I can only feel so bad about that. And you're doing business with the very people that are trying to institute tyranny for, upwards of, 30, 40 years. And you're still on your piece of property. They haven't run you off yet. I think if the government really wanted to run you off your land, they'd just kill you. So I don't know how much of this is people not wanting to pay taxes, because that's a really convenient time to take a stand, is when you owe a lot of money to the government. Now all of a sudden you become very moral, and it becomes about a protest itself, which up until this point, that's not what was happening. So the takeaway is really, I've seen it. It's compartmentalized. The people that are sympathetic to Lavoie, his family, the line in the sand that they were drawing, that they see that kind of embodies this American spirit, this a willingness to die for principle, for your cause. Seeing that as noble, putting the line in the sand between you and the federal government, those people are going to see that man as a hero. The people that see him as a domestic terrorist, when they saw him jump out and run around, and the FBI only at that point shoot him, regardless of all of the hyper analysis that comes out now, those people are just going to think that. They're going to think, well, that guy got it. Big deal. They weren't sympathetic to it anyway. And I don't know how sympathetic I really was, because I don't really understand what the occupation, the armed occupation of that wildlife refuge was supposed to accomplish. Maybe getting less time for the Hammonds. That was something they had negotiated. They had a judge.
And that's the unfortunate thing, because I would say that they're... like what you were just saying, I think that, people are going to see their worldview. People who are kind of statists are going to say that, who kind of like the totalitarian thing are going to say, well, they question the state, and I believe, the mainstream media, basically, on who they were. And then those who are more, you might say, delve into, the truth. They're not really mainstream media type people. More peer-to-peer media, which is what I kind of like to call it.
Peer-to-peer?
Peer-to-peer media. Because, you got there used to be the alternative media. Now I think there's the alternative mainstream media and something which is still the alternative media. But I think I kind of call it peer-to-peer media these days, where it's people like you and I talking, and sites like Blacklisted News. I just kind of consider that sort of peer-to-peer. It's not really...
it's a broad distribution, but from peer sources. I like that. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's kind of peer to peer these days. So, it's tough when I think, and I know there's a lot of gray in between these two stances, but I think the statists will say they question the state is right. And then you're going to have people who are, very liberty minded, who would rather just say, let's just take the Constitution. Let's just go down to the first 10 amendments there, and then just cut the rest off, trash it, and leave me alone. So, your very liberty-minded people, like your states' rights people and such, everyone's going to see their worldview. He's a villain, or he's a terrorist, or he's a hero, But I don't think everybody thinks, one of those extremes. But I would say that
I think it's actually pretty polarizing. I think that you're either scared of those people, that you want the government to take guns from them, or you probably... are sympathetic. I don't know if there's anybody that's the people that actually have an opinion, and that's probably few and far between anyway.
We don't even know what happened. Yeah, it's actually a very powerful wedge issue. That's what it is to me, and I think that politics gets a lot of power through wedge issues. So to me, I kind of see it like that. Like living in Seattle. In Seattle, you would say. your Seattleites would be like, yeah, they question the state. Then you go to the Eastern Washington, and people would be like, yeah, because the state's a bunch of assholes. So, yeah, people see their worldview.
Some people were saying
we need to kill them. We need to kill them.
Yeah,
and I think the governor of Oregon actually did say that. Pretty much, somebody needs to kill them.
Yeah, you find that these people are so sympathetic to the protesters in Ferguson that see the police doing all the horrible, evil, wrong things, or that are, and then they see that and they're like, you should be doing the same thing to those people. It's because they're white. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I think that the approach was much different than what I think a lot of people thought, and that would be, Ruby Ridge, Waco, a bloodshed moment. And of course, the government doesn't need that. I think that they want to look like that they're legitimate, and by murdering people and setting children on fire like they did at Mount Carmel, they're not gonna. I think they learn from those lessons, and so I don't know if those types of protests are nearly as effective as they used to be, or have.
And these guys really had. I think it's unfortunate because I guess what I would mention to people out there is, you have a value and the world's better with you, and so don't get killed for something stupid. Like, it's so unfortunate because I would say when you look at like the Hammond case, I think it was pretty dirty. I would say that like the BLM, et cetera, being used as kind of thugs, the Hammonds were, I think, wrongfully imprisoned. I think it's a pretty clear-cut case, or at least they had made it. There was plenty of good research that I saw on it that would make the Hammonds look pretty screwed over and the BLM look pretty dirty. So it's almost like they had this a case that I think if they had just said, look, we're going to get involved here, we're going to raise awareness about this, we're going to raise money, we're going to create a legal challenge, and we're just never going to stop hammering on this Hammond issue until we get them out, or all of America knows what the BLM is doing and what the federal government's doing and why they want to own land in states and that the Constitution says they shouldn't, et cetera, et cetera. Like, they almost had a really juicy, very, very powerful case that I think most Americans would be sympathetic to, who are not complete statists. And rather than push that legally and push that, to get that awareness out there, it just all kind of fizzled out in the middle of a freezing nowhere where they kind of had occupied a little brick building the size of an old schoolhouse, and
people were sending them dick candy and dildos and things.
Yeah. And maybe, maybe it's just the only way. I know, God. And maybe it's just the only way they could figure to do something. I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one.
It's just that's why I couldn't get behind it, and I don't feel compelled to the case. It's like, I don't know what you're doing there.
If they've made it clear, and
we're going to take this over and give it back to the people, and the state's going to take it away from the federal government. I'm like,
and that's so hard because most people, they see that's.
I mean, I'm with you, man. I don't like the federal government taking land from people, and I've talked about, I've intimated to you, things like that happening with my family, with family land being reappropriated by the Corps of Engineers. I was just reading a lengthy piece about the Little Bush, the Hispanic one here, George P. He is there's another Bush, and basically they're seizing a bunch of land in Galveston near one of the only areas people can walk up and fish because they have a huge seawall around it, and this is land that people have lived on, and they're just basically saying, hey, this is a floodplain. Global warming is going to kill you, and the next cut with the water is going to be up above you, which may or may not be true. And using the strong arm of the government to push these people off of their land. So, I mean, the Inuit Indians that were there before the Bundys, they've been there a long time. I mean, they've paid taxes, or at least worked with the government using the government bought. See, that's one of the things. It's like, well, the government bought the land from these other people. It's like, well, they forced them off their land. Well, if they forced them off their land, why weren't you forced off your land? And how come you're working with them and paying them money? And better yet, they let you run up a tab of $1 million before they even say, hey, you really, really, really have to pay us back that money because you owe us $1 million now. The IRS will come and, yank you out of your house for a $20 discrepancy. So, I just, it's not like I said, I don't give any slack or upper hand to the government in this case, in my opinion. But I think when you do things wrong, it's like activism goes wrong. You mentioned to me, the don't carry a gun to the protest because it never turns out well. Just look at the Maidan. Of course, some of that in Ukraine was government sponsored, but when you're trying to make a political point and you do it in that manner, the people that are with you, you already had those people. Those people already were sympathetic and already see that. I mean, I don't know how sympathetic they're going to be to you, if they're going to send you food or water, and maybe not enough of them did. And of course, who's going to deliver it? Oh yeah, that's right, the government. So, you got to kind of hope that happens. I mean, it just seemed like a really, really, really bad idea from the get-go. But, I'm sympathetic because I understand that, to enjoy the freedoms that are outlined in the Constitution, we have to enjoy them. We have to, have a government that's, unfortunately, the only way you get a response is with violence, or it's one of the few ways you do get an immediate reaction from the press. If you're out there waving your hand and holding up flowers in front of the White House and saying, hey, there's a guy, speaking of which, to totally sidebar, he's been protesting at the White House for like 35 years or something.
For him.
he finally died, but he's been there in protest. He's been protesting the war. I just saw this. It was a crazy article.
Does he know Vietnam's over?
Yeah, but my point being is that he died, and I only found this on an obscure website. I mean, I think Huffington Post had a recent bit on him, but there wasn't a lot. Let's see, White House. Gotta find this now, but it just seemed like, okay, this guy's been there using peaceful revolution for forever, and nobody cares. America's longest standing protester passes away after he spent 35 years outside the White House. We have to give this guy his due. Connie Picotto. The conception of Connie Picotto, a legendary peace activist who had been camping in front of the White House since 1981. She was well-known personality in the U.S. Capitol, having manned the peace vigil tent for 3.5 decades, suffering the worst of both weather and humanity, all in an attempt to stop the world from being destroyed. Now, that's an activist, and unfortunately, people that are that dedicated, they don't get their due. At least not in the mainstream media. I mean, this is Oddity Central. That's where I found this. Yeah, so
that's a hardcore character. I can only imagine how much he had. If I had a flat butt, I mean, sitting out there so long.
Yeah,
but no, it's tough. It reminds me that this what you're talking about just now, and the whole Hammond Ranch Bundy thing, Oregon thing, reminds me of. I just watched a 2-hour documentary on YouTube. I think I don't think the BBC created it. I'm not sure, but it was made in Europe. I could tell. A 2-hour documentary on the Wars of the Roses.
Oh yes,
that went from the 1440s to the I guess right to about 1500 or something like that, and it's kind of it all seems to have one thing what struck me is how did they get soldiers to fight in these wars more than once? Because they've excavated some of the areas where these battles happened, where 20-some thousand people died in a day and such like that, and they've looked at the how they died, and you can see all these crushed in skulls, and they died phenomenally brutally, and also they found that many of these people had horrific injuries that they actually had recovered from, and they were fighting again. So they had, somebody got a sword in the face and broke his jaw and whatever, and then he was out, fighting again after he recovered. And I just found it to be amazing how I could see maybe you would go out once, but then once you got an axe in the face, if you lived through it, you probably wouldn't do it again. But they did. So it amazes me how the people got talked in to fighting these battles, especially people who had gone out and done it, who then went and did it again. And like what the battles were over. And it's funny because it all
Money.
sort of started, money is true. A lot of it's money, but it was kind of like what the Lancasters versus like the Yorks, like family lines. And it's like, it was kind of a modern day Game of Thrones. And just, it's odd. It made me think about, like people getting killed for their beliefs. It's funny. It's like so many soldiers went and fought more than once or several times in these battles that I can't imagine. Like I could say, okay, I'm young, I'm dumb, I'm going to go out there. Okay, I got an axe in the face, I quit. I'm not fighting anymore. But they kept at it.
They really hated the Dukes. That was or the Yorks rather, the Duke of York. They really hated him. And, in the 15th century, you probably didn't have a lot of other things going on. But that was it was Game of Thrones-ish because it was really, who is in charge of or who is supposed to have the crown. They challenging each other's rules, and so.
And that reminds me. Like
they were the Lancastrian party. That's right. Final victory went to the claimant of the Lancastrian party, according to Wikipedia here.
And that reminds me of like the whole Oregon thing, where you look at it and it's kind of like, if you look at Game of Thrones, there's no good guys. If you look at the whole Oregon thing, there's no good guys. And if you look at like the, like War of the Roses, there's no good guys. So in all these situations, it's kind of hard to root for anybody because everybody's, backstabbing.
Well, tonight is the night. There is something big happening while we're just jibber jabbering here. The caucuses, where politicians get to kiss the caucus. In Iowa.
The caucuses. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Angry dog.
Angry dog. Doomcast puppy in the background. Yeah, but apparently Senator Ted Cruz, according to the Microsoft computers, have you seen this new system that they're using to tally it? Basically, Bill Gates is determining who's winning and losing elections. And the only person who dare say anything is an old socialist Jewish man named Bernie Sanders. He's like, hey, well, what's up with this Microsoft thing? And, rightfully so. I mean,
I heard they're tallying this on computers. Wow. Like, since when's that happening? Yeah. I
want it to be done on
punch cards.
I mean, that'd be nice. I mean, I was thinking papyrus or tablets.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Trying to make that Jewish reference, it did not work. But
I want my yeoman to do it. Yeah, really. So it looks like Clinton 640, Sanders 636. That's really close. Cruz 28.
Yeah, Ted Cruz is winning on CNN.
28, and then Trump 24, Rubio 23. So it'll be a long night if you're actually watching.
It's just it's a race. That's what it's about. It's like watching three dead horses run to a battleground. That the only one I could say anything for would probably be Cruz. But I'm not a Cruz fan at all. Ron Paul was out there with Rand. And, Rand said something I thought was pretty profound, but the Republican Party probably doesn't care about. And that is that he's the only candidate that will question whether dropping bombs on people in the Middle East is creating blowback, and if it's actually a good idea if we can carpet bomb ISIS away. And I paraphrase, but some of the things that were coming out of that, do you want a revolution? Apparently the Republican Party likes Cruz. And how can you not? I mean, the guy is smart. He has a Goldman Sachs-backed wife.
Very feminine voice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's a little slimy. He argued in front of the Supreme Court 9 times, 9 cases, which is pretty historic. And you can't be a schlub and do that. You have to be a pretty witty guy. So, I mean, I give him credit where credit is due.
I like that. I watched him in the Senate. I like guns. Everybody knows that. So
I like guns.
I like guns. I've watched a video of him and Feinstein going at it in the Senate, arguing the Second Amendment, and that's where I kind of got a little bit. I kind of like Cruz, where because Feinstein is one evil bitch. Oh my God, she's reptilian and nasty as hell, and I would not want to, face her at all because, she can use her reptilian voodoo powers on you and like fucking shapeshift and just rip your face off. So, but Cruz has sat there and taken on that really nasty reptilian bitch, and he's won. And I don't, she might be old and nasty looking, but that like reptilian bloodline, it gives you power, and I don't know. He seemed like a guy who actually, I had a feeling
he would face the fire. He would dare taunt the serpent.
If you can like look Feinstein in the eye and like really kind of battle that nasty creature, I would say, part of it is who's gonna sit at the table with Putin one day, or the Chinese leaders or whatever. I look at like Bernie would die, he'd have an aneurysm.
Yes.
Trump would be like, "You're fired." Yeah,
yeah. China, you're fired. Yeah,
you're fired. Yeah, and they'd be like,
they could turn it into a reality show that's really actually a reality show.
Yeah, Trump could have the ultimate reality show, but unfortunately, it's like, reality shows are staged. This would be real, So I don't know. If I had to say, if somebody had to, or would it? I know it's true. So yeah. So with Cruz, could Cruz and Putin, kind of go eye to eye and do some hardcore bargaining? Maybe they could, So I don't know. I like the guy, but then again, do I like any of them? Really? No. I'm not disillusioned, but it's kind of like pick your poison. Like in Buddhism, they call it there's this term. It's called the three sicknesses of humanity, and they're greed, anger, and stupidity. So I kind of look at it like you've got greed, anger, and stupidity. Pick which one you want to run the country.
I don't like stupid people. We did that with Bush. I think that Barack Obama's smarter, or he just really is articulate and reads a teleprompter quite well. I'm not sure. And Rubio, O'Malley, I don't even know who that is. He got 1% of the vote. Sanders, not bad considering what he spent. Cruz, as far as a front runner, somebody that has that Hispanic appeal. I guess Rubio's there too. He just sweats too much, and as far as being a political analyst, that's really what it comes down to. This is a race, and it has to be close. Otherwise, they're not selling media advertising. So, if there's not a race, then there's no point in watching. There's no interest, and that's why you see just this massive amount of perception management. A guy who's actually good at unpacking, what's happening in the media, PR, perception management realm is Rush Limbaugh. As soon as the elections start happening, I really listen to him because he just talks about the players, and how they, it's not so much really what they're saying. It's the way it's received and how the media turns that into a narrative for people. It's not, half of the things that, Donald Trump says are just sound bites, but it's how the media interprets it. And I think that, at least with Trump, you're seeing how you can buck the mainstream media now, and you don't have to have it. I don't know if you heard about the groveling or saw those clips of Bill O'Reilly begging him and trying to guilt Trump into going back onto Fox News.
You owe me milkshakes.
You owe me milkshakes. Yeah, exactly. So, it's something. It's a spectacle. It's kind of fun to watch, but something that we talked about. And I don't know if we really want to get into it, but really understanding deep politics. There was a great. I don't know if you watched that video that we published on BLN, but I know you read the article. But really talking about the people that
the deep state,
the deep state
inside Washington's shadowy power elite. Yeah,
K Street, lobbying firms, think tanks, how they all create an echo chamber for the military-industrial complex, and those are the people that push the agendas, and those are the people that gather and create intel, and it's also it's almost, when you look at the deep state, it's looking at all of the players and, the wins and losses, or the perception of what they will win and lose in almost any situation. You sanction Russia, Coca-Cola is going to lose money. They have to be considered. So if you think about a company like Coca-Cola, which is seemingly, at least modern day, benign, most people, PepsiCo, whoever it may be, have billions of dollars in interest in the decisions that are being made that you would think would be made in the war room. So just to kind of, show one example of how considerations for huge groups, lobbying groups like AIPAC, groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, the International Crisis Group, all of these groups that represent Fortune 500 companies that, lobby their way into, different decisions that most people can't fathom and don't understand why, politicians are doing what it is that they do. And so when you start really understanding that system in a much more broader aspect, you really, it's much easier to understand why what we're seeing on TV tonight with the caucuses, which I can't get over the fact that it's a caucus, that it's really, just kind of, who you're getting. You're getting the people that have gotten the most interest because of the media. If the media followed Rand Paul around all day long, then people would be voting for him, regardless of whether or not he was getting good or bad publicity. I mean, almost all of the media attention that's put on Trump is, hit pieces, and the media trying to isolate somebody that, only lost by a few percentage points here in this caucus 2016 election in Iowa. I don't even know if we can take any of these numbers that seriously. That's the whole thing. It's like,
I wonder if the media doesn't like Trump. What I mean is, so
he isn't spending money with them.
Well, he's not spending money with them, but I also wonder, like, maybe if they, like, my take on the mainstream media, the big ones like Fox, MSNBC, or just, I guess, CNBC now, CBS, CNN, etc. Like, I look at them, and so I worked around one of those. I won't say which one. People can figure it out if they look at my history. But I worked in the same building as one of those for a while, and got to kind of see their little think tanks and how they work stories and things like that. And I just look at it. For me, I know that there aren't those news, like, they all get their stories from the same places. They all coordinate. And I just look at it like, I think if they really, you never know, like the disdain for Trump might be fake. It might just be another part of the soap opera. Do you know what I mean? Like, because bad press is good press. So in a sense, like, I would say that all of them I see as just it's like watching a soap opera. None of it's real. So I wouldn't necessarily be certain that, like, the hit pieces aren't actually promoting him, designed to do that. I mean, he's like the bad guy in the soap opera, I would just say
he's definitely, and that's what he played on TV, the bad guy. But the smart, knows how to be calculated, making the deal. So not a pushover, but maybe not a boss, maybe a little bit of a softie, somebody with a heart, but not that much of a heart. And that's his whole campaign. It's not, for conservatives, he's not talking about limiting government power or reducing government. Actually, he's talking about expanding it through single-payer healthcare. He's talking about expanding it. He's basically saying, don't shrink it. We just need to make it more effective, and we need to use that awesome power to leverage and push other people over into doing what we want them to do, which, I don't know how that works. We
just need to consolidate executive privilege even more, so I can just say, you're fired to people I don't like. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he wants to be another kingmaker, but, anybody that wants to be the president of the United States, and, somebody like Trump that that pays his own way into it has to have some angles, has to see this. I mean, I don't see how he's making money at it, but he's not. He's definitely not breaking his own bank to run this campaign pretty effectively. So,
yeah, it makes me wonder. I do really. It's one of the conversations I have with a lot of people here in Seattle who are kind of like the Noam Chomsky types who carry like manufactured consent around in their backpack. And like, to me, there
is plenty of that truth.
Yeah, it's like I like them. I mean, but I guess maybe sometimes I feel a little old around them because I feel like they're very smug and they're absolutely certain that everything can be explained by money. They're like, follow the money. It's all about money. Everything and what happens is about money. And I really don't. I think some people get fooled. I think that sometimes the money is actually a smokescreen for other motives. Like, I look at World War II, and the Allies bombed like every German city, pretty much. First they bombed it, then they came back around, and then they dropped phosphorus on it to make these huge infernos. And they didn't have to bomb those civilian targets. And they'll say, oh well, I mean, they were selling bombs, and that's what it was about. See, money, money, money. See, that explains it. And I'm like, I don't think that simply money explains, killing massive amounts of non-combatants. I think vengeance does. So I don't know. I look at it like,
well, yeah, I mean, getting a point across, instilling fear in your enemy. I mean, Sun Tzu's Art of War. I think that that most things can be explained. I mean, cruelty and even utter chaos can be explained by somebody's viewpoint of what can come out of it. Order out of chaos. I mean, you look at the neoconservative think tanks and academics that led us into Iraq twice. And
plan for a new American century. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, they had a plan for a new American
had
century,
a game plan.
And it's not planning out. It's not playing out at all like they thought it would, and it's not at all as wonderful and rosy. And when you listen to people like Dick Cheney, I mean, they really believed that they were going to go in there and they had Paul Brenner, and he was, commanding the troops, and he had, the Iraqi army under his control, and they got the banner out and put it on the aircraft carrier. Mission accomplished, and had George Bush out there. I mean, it just kind of goes to show you how naive some of these people in this short-term strategy were. But there were people that benefited. Maybe not as well as they thought they were. It might have been a political mission initially, but they sold huge amounts of weaponry. They put so much time and money and effort into creating a security state, a global surveillance network. I mean, all of the other things that are there. I'm trying to get away from money. I come right back to money. Ultimately spying, corporate espionage is money. It's control. It's controlling technology, which becomes money.
Oh, well, that makes me think about two things. One, I'll have to send you a link. I may have sent you a link to it today. There's a documentary, and it's amazing what is free on YouTube. I mean, if you want to know how to make a crossbow, go to YouTube. If you want to know how to exactly. If you want to know how to, make a composting toilet, go to YouTube. I mean, if it's not on YouTube, I'd be drastically surprised. I bet I could search right now how to make a composting toilet. I mean, it's there. There's 11 videos. So anyway, but there's a video called it's a documentary, and it's called Surveillance City, and it's about New Jersey, this rather baroque part of New Jersey. And if you watch the documentary, it is the biggest shithole on earth, and very Detroit-looking. And these people who made this documentary, I mean, they really got in the hood with some seriously nasty people. And I'm not just talking about the cops. I'm talking about the gangsters and the cops. And they get into how, like, the federal government has just given, this area, this, I guess, city, New Jersey, all this. They basically gave them all this surveillance equipment. So these guys are hardcore, going full on surveillance of this, crappy part of New Jersey. And you get into like, what is that about? Well, they don't have the money to install all this stuff in this part of New Jersey, so the federal government's just giving it to them. Ultimately, we're paying for it. So it's interesting. Surveillance keeps growing, and surveillance is big money. So kind of getting off that line of thought that we were just talking about, but it does make me think about.
There's money in tyranny. There's money in surveilling people.
There's money. There is, and then also you had an article on Blacklisted News. I think it was called Obama Wants. Well, they're saying he wants. It's not specifically him, but $4 billion to subsidize Silicon Valley driverless cars. And I saw that article. I think it was on Blacklisted News. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah.
And what got me about it is, for one thing, if it's a good entrepreneurial idea, why does it need $4 billion? Why can't you get VC for that? I mean, come on. I mean, you can like talk people into all kinds of stupid shit, and they will, and they seem to get venture capital. I've been part of several companies that have failed that were dumb. You know what?
That's why we said that the Bundys and the Hammonds should have just had a GoFundMe.
If they had a GoFundMe account, they'd have been kicking ass. Seriously, they would have done. And that's something for people to think about. You know what I mean? Like all that crap that the Bundys did on behalf of the Hammonds in Oregon, they'd have been so far along if they done a GoFundMe. It was so much further along. But the thing about like $4 billion to subsidize those driverless cars, one thing people out there, if you don't know, I work in technology. It's what I do. But I have a little bit of insight that maybe the general public would know, but I maybe have like 3% more because of the line of work that I'm in. But driverless cars, realize what those things really are. They are surveillance machines. So when you're driving that thing, like start talking about, they're giving $4 billion to subsidize these driverless cars. Well, guess what they're going to do? Along with drive you around, which is cute. They're doing facial recognitions. They have microphones. They're recording everything. They have video. They're recording everything. And so they know who you are, where you're going, where you've been, as if your phone doesn't. But in a sense, when you get into, you are basically driving an ultra powerful drone around, and so is everybody else. And I would make when I see this $4 billion to subsidize Silicon Valley driverless cars, I think there's a lot to be said for kind of a dual purpose. You know what I mean? Like there's people in Silicon Valley who think, wow, this technology is really great. Let's have driverless cars. People will be safer. But then you have like the deep state, pull that story in, which is saying, well, we also have like the best mass surveillance ever, and there won't be a square yard, a square foot of this whole damn continent that isn't under constant massive surveillance. They won't have a drone watching it, basically.
Sure. Or you won't want your own drone.
Yeah, really. So the driverless cars thing, it creeps me out. I wish I didn't know more than I should about it, but it just creeps me out. Like, because people don't necessarily
Internet of
know.
Things. It's funny you mentioned
Internet of Surveillance.
Yeah, the FBI, the grand debate right now, currently here in 2016, or as we roll into 2016, is whether or not the FBI should be able to have backdoors into all of the electronic communication equipment that we have here today in the United States of America and around the world. And they actually put together some of those think tanks, and they came up with a consensus, and that is that you don't really need to break encryption because the Internet of Things will spy on us just fine. People will be giving up information and telling them about their daily life socially to the point where there's really almost no need for it. That your light bulb will tell people when they're at home. The government doesn't have to tap your phone or put a
look at what your phone figures out. Like I have an Android phone, and it was like, it figured out where I live and where I work. And it would just come up in the morning and say, hey, there's a little bit of traffic on the way to work. And I'd be like, I never told you where I work. And it says, well, I know. So, I mean, yeah, exactly. My phone can just figure out where I work and who I am. And I told it. So,
right.
Yeah, for sure. So
unfortunate development, people, you embrace it, but at the same time, there's always the folly. You can walk away from your phone, and if the government's comfortable thinking you're at home with your phone, you can get away from it. You might be able to get away from the Internet of Things. I don't know. It might not be realistic, and it just depends on, what people want. Do people want that? Can we safeguard that technology and live in a world where we truly cherish anonymity? I said anonymity, I meant anonymity. Yeah. Making up words here at the end of the Doomcast. So, people don't find that to be compelling, that they're willing to give up a lot of their privacy in order to enjoy some of those, neat technological cool gadgets. Well, it's going to probably take something really horrific, like a digital nightmare, the rise of AI robots, or something really creepy to convince people that we need to rethink it. I mean, we do see a lot of rethinking. I think people are, at least being cautious about it. But the UK's just passed a new law allowing for genetic manipulation. Allowing
of humans,
human beings. So, I don't know where it goes. We got GMO mosquitoes in Brazil, and now we have kids with the Zika virus, and
And I read some stories about that, and like the Zika virus. So it's been around since 1940. It's not new.
Nope.
And the Rockefeller Foundation, I guess the Rockefeller something. Owned by the Rockefellers, are the ones who actually have the patent on it, and
they have a patent on the virus.
Yeah, which means basically that like they identified it, which is what I guess they consider a patent. I didn't exactly understand how that works, but they, in some way or the other,
they get to use it on other people. Is that kind of the thing? That,
well, you can
if
buy
you're
it.
If you weaponize it, you got to pay the Rockefellers.
I believe that's how it might be. I'm a little bit uncertain because I didn't understand exactly what I was seeing and reading, but that's what it appeared to be.
Wow!
Like that's what they call it, a patent. I guess you can buy that virus if you want it. I don't know if
maybe
you
a
can
synthetic
buy it.
patent on the recreation of the gene. I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm
not into creepy stuff really. I try not to get into that.
And they're saying, people in, I guess, Brazil and, what is it that borders Brazil? Anyway, they're saying like women shouldn't have, children for the next 2 years.
That's kind of dystopic, isn't it? I mean,
that whole idea. I look at it, I gotta admit, I think the Zika virus is fake. I think the whole thing is an inflated story saying that 4,000 women may have had, I forget what you call that condition, but where babies' brains are smaller than they should be.
Right.
And I don't know. It's been around since the 40s, and people haven't seemed to. I mean, it's tough. All we know is what we can see, what we can read, and I don't know. I have looked at enough. I followed that enough to and read a bit about it. To me, it just reeks of a big farce to me. But that's just so far what I've seen, like on the onset, where it's like, wouldn't that be a great way to? I mean, why would have you ever heard of them saying of like, I think the World Health Organization said that, I believe, like, don't have babies for the next 2 years?
Yeah, I think it was I think it was actually like the health department in Brazil maybe that was saying that.
Yeah, but, are we getting any more weirder? Is that possible? I have never heard anything like that. So I would say that the deep state, if you ask me, is getting, I think it's getting shaky. I have a belief that'll be 2016 is where more and more people get aware of the deep state. And I think the deep state, I kind of call it the empire, is going to get more and more a little bit uncertain and vicious, kind of feeling like a little bit cornered. And I think we'll see things like that. Oh, now there's a virus. It's
El Salvador's advice. El Salvador advises against pregnancy until 2018. So I mean, that's I mean, who is that? When I hate when like the New York Times says it's El Salvador. I mean, that's a lot of people. Is it their government? Is it their health department? El Salvador.
Is it their version?
It's like
of
saying
Alex
the
Jones?
United States says to do this. It's like a lot of people in the United States. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole Zico thing has me a little bit. I don't know. It just looking at it and reading about it, and some of other people who've done some investigation and published their kind of findings. I look at it and it just reeks of bullshit to me. But like I say, I wouldn't go and I'm not going to go and tempt fate or anything. I'm just saying it sounds like bullshit.
Right. You weren't planning on going and having any children in South America anytime soon, were you?
I had to cancel a trip, but
Okay. Enough said. We'll leave it there.
Just said,
All right. Do you think that Charlie would be at all proud of this show tonight? I don't know. I mean,
I think he would like it. I think he would have liked it. I think so. And I still like that recording that we did talking about Oregon. And that might be, I wouldn't append it to this because this is like we're at an hour and it's perfect. But that might be kind of a good, I don't know, like appendix, Doomcast appendix. I could always, call it that or something like that if we wanted to stick that up.
I don't know. We'll think about it. We'll think about it.
Think about it.
Maybe if it's by popular demand only.
Okay. Yeah, if we get comments saying, hey, Doug and I had an amazing spirited conversation about the Oregon situation that I think is a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. And if we get enough people saying, hey, post that as like Appendix A to the show, I'll talk to Doug about it. Maybe we'll put it up. It was a lot of fun. And other than that, one thing I would say with, I think Charlie would be proud of the show. I think he'd like it. And, one thing I would mention to people, if you were a fan of the Doomcast or a fan of Charlie or a fan of Doug, or if you like me, go to YouTube and search Doomcast and then Mixup. And maybe you don't want to listen to all the shows again. That would take quite a while. But a lot of the mix-ups are really gold, and they're short. They're only a couple minutes, and they're a lot of fun. And I was looking at those, realizing how frigging many of those I made, And there's if you like the show, go back and check those out. You may think that they were a lot of fun.
You may not. I don't know.
You may not. I can't tell you. I don't know.
Charlie may or may not like this show. He may be listening, maybe not. It's hard to say. Yeah, check that out. We'll appendix some stuff to this, I think, as well. I want to go ahead.
I was going to put Doomcast, maybe 35 and 36 mix up. Just stick it on the end of what I upload, because they those were kind of gold. I think they really got the spirit of the show. And
so, what you want to make this one like a 3-hour show?
No, 11 like 1 hour and like 15 minutes. Yeah. So anyway, no, just Doomcast, the mix up for 35 and 36.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I just would sign it off. Hey, and one thing I think about when it comes to Charlie and the last few months of his life is it reminds me of Twin Peaks, the TV show Twin Peaks. There was that like the cop, the guy who was the investigator, the detective who came there, and he was always very charming. He always said he made a point of do something for yourself, give yourself a gift every day. And he'd always do something like he loved black coffee, and he'd go to the skankiest, shittiest diner ever and have a cup of black coffee and act like it was like the finest Jamaican, Blue Mountain coffee ever made. And so in a sense, that's something somehow or the other Charlie did the last couple months of his life. So I would say that that's what life is really about, So everybody, you make a difference, be kind to yourself, give yourself a little gift every day.
Yeah, I think otherwise you kind of forget what life's all about. If you're not enjoying it and living for the moment, then you might be living for nothing, quite honestly. Not to say that you should not think about the future. And I think that our impact on this world and the future, to get metaphysical and all sentimental here, is that you want to leave the world a little bit better place than when you found it. And if you're not having a positive impact, then you're not having an impact, or maybe having a negative impact. So
every good day
you
have, you stick it to the man. Happiness sticks it to the man. It's the best vengeance.
Yeah, and I think that's the way we have to look at it, and that's where we're going to leave it. Charlie McGrath, I miss you, my friend. Greg Simpson, thank you so much for doing this Doomcast finale with me here on this first day of February 2016. It's good.
My pleasure.
yeah, we'll do more podcasts in the future. I'll drag Craig out and we'll chew on more topics. And, of course, love hearing from you. You can always text the Doomcast or my show, me at 512-222-3067. The handle for Craig Simpson is producer Craig33, and mine is BLN Radio. And this is the finale, but plenty of more content coming your way in a variety of new ways. So we'll see you then.
I'll be back. Bye-bye.
Here's something. I've got the whole Firefox book series. Okay, you want a recipe for cooking raccoon? You don't need it today unless you like raccoon, but you might need it tomorrow. How many stew recipes do you have for squirrel? I have at least 5. So it's not that I'm not a fan of prepping. It's just that I think that some of these people
come across that way. But
people are faux preppers. You faux fake preppers out there. You're just weekend warriors. You're just wearing camo and running around with your Barbie doll accessories on your AR-15 doing, I don't know, flips and, crossing monkey bars and stuff. That's not really prepping, okay? That's a combat collision course.
Extraordinary.
Damn.
Damn eagle hunter.
Can you kill bald eagles with it? Not that I would. I'm just asking.
Could it be done? Tell me. Thing, but
yeah.
How'd that go? Do that again. I don't even know about this, man. What?
This is huge. I want to live in the vacuum that you live in.
Seriously, I say teach your kid to shoot and teach him how to knife fight and teach him how to have common sense enough that if on the minuscule possibility that this kind of thing happens around your child, that they know what to do, which is haul ass.
Nothing new out of Eric Holder. Can I one-up you?
Yep.
We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
With it, and he asked me if I wanted it, and of course, it is a weapon, so of course I want it.
Poor people like you and I, Charlie McGrath, we didn't get to eat meat. Okay, so we weren't as strong, and you actually had the, a kind of a subspecies of human, the free market for the poor people, and we want socialism for the rich, and that's what we have today. I mean, you have socialized richness, and
that's exactly right. Socialized. We have socialized failure, right, and we have private richness. There you go. Somehow, shipping crap around the world and using slave labor to do it is part of free market capitalism. Somehow, this is part of the American dream now. Peace out, y'all.